Hello and welcome to the changelog video for Super Factory Manager 4.20.0. To start things off, there's a new command /sfm changelog. We'll start looking there. There's a lot of stuff included in this release, so I'll try and be brief. Let's start by just going through the basics of the mod. You'll need a factory manager, some cables, a disk, and some inventories. Let's place our manager and we'll connect it to chests using our cables. And immediately, the new addition, there's a fancy inventory cable, so it's smaller than a full block, which a lot of people have wanted. And then we'll need a disk, so we can insert that. And in the examples, we'll start with a simple program. So every 20 ticks, input from A, output to B, end. So we'll hit done and apply that. And now it says label A and B are used in the code, but not assigned in the world. New addition in this update, did you remember to push your labels using the label gun? So that is a common thing that people have forgotten to do, so I've added that hint. So that means we need to take our label gun, pull the labels, label the inventories, and then you'll notice that if I don't push them, it's giving us the hint. Did you remember to push? So now, when we push, all the warnings are gone. And if we put something in this chest, it will be transported over here from A to B. And along with these cables, part of the update is facades. So we can apply using having the network tool in the offhand, and then a block in the right hand, we can apply blocks to these cables. And you can hide the overlay, because by default, the network tool shows you the position of cables. So if they were hidden behind your walls and stuff, you still see them. So using Alt, a new addition, you can toggle on and off that overlay. And of course, the facades also work with the fancy cables, so the smaller than full block ones. And they work with transparency. And there's a few other things to note. So if you hover on the network tool, it will tell you how to use it to place the facade. So place in the offhand. And then there's also control click, alt click, and control alt click to control the behavior of the application of the facades. So if you have a floor made out of the cables and you want to do some kind of fancy pattern with it, then you would want to be able to apply all of these at once. So let's say I want that to be the starting floor, and then I want some of the glass to be that way, but let's say I want to change the glass to be something else. So let's make it wool. I can apply it to just that glass using alt click, but if there's also some wool over here, then let's say I want to change that again and make it red. Then I can change just a few of it. So are you sure you want to update the appearance? And in this case, it's giving us the warning that we're going to update a lot of blocks at once. So that was alt click, changed it. If we hover over the network tool again, control click is contiguously, alt click matches the blocks without having them to be touching, and control alt click does everything. So if we do control click, it'll do just these ones, or those ones. But if we do alt click, it will change all of them. And you get a warning if you're going to change a lot of stuff at once. And then if you do control alt click, it updates everything. And this also applies, you can change the shape of the cables to be full block or not. And if you have the big ones and the fancy ones, and you try and change just some of them, then it hopefully it's trying to not let you mess up by mistake. That's the gist of it. So mess around with that. So let's keep looking at the changelog. There's a bunch of performance improvements, so we'll try and skip over the nitty details. Edit in hand reminder. So if you have a disk, you can edit in your hand. Push label warning, optimize each limits. So if you're using this syntax where output retain one each seed, this is matching for all of the items that match seeds. So in this case, I don't have many seeds, but if you have something like mystical agriculture, then you have a lot of seeds in the mod pack, and this is much optimized now. And in fact, you can do it like this. So input one each from A. So this will take one of any item. And previously this would have lagged because this would have expanded in the code to match for each item in the game. So if we put like this, then it's taking one of each type of item at once. So this is new and not laggy. So that's part of the change. In fact, what I should be doing. Let's just go through this. So we've looked at this, support for ore. So if you want to move 5 stone or dirt, that is now possible, which is different than moving 5 stone and 5 dirt, because if you just had a comma here, then that is different. But if you had 5 stone or dirt, then it would only total move 5 stone or dirt. Yeah. Some correctness stuff was fixed. What else? Add notice to the inspector. So the slot numbers, if I hit Control I, then it shows the slots corresponding to the inventories. And I added the warning that says they don't always correspond to the automation slots. So if you have something like a metallurgic infuser from Mekanism, some mods, the way they're implemented, the numbers don't increment, and that's because the slots in the GUI don't always correspond to the slots that are exposed through automation. So if I put some iron in here, and some coal, then the network tool that I have in my offhand, if you put it in your main hand, it will actually, when you right click on a block, it'll tell you what is being exported through the automation stuff as well. And you can access this also using the Control I inspector and then hitting export. This also gives you some hints on what is being visible from the block. And of course, Mekanism blocks require a direction for inserting and extracting resources. So there's some correctness bugs, we had a warning. Some syntax highlighting fixes. So people with fix without and with logic implementation. So if you want to input without a certain tag, then that was previously not working, and now it should be working. So if you want to input with tag ingots or without ingots, or you want something with ingots and chests, or like if you want to combine them or whatever, then that should work now. Let's see if we can do an example of that. Let's take you out. So we have input from A, and we'll do input with tag ingot. So if we get some ingots, then is it singular or plural? Label A is assigned. What's going on here? There. So input with tag ingots from A. If you have COFH core, then that will tell you what the tags are, but I don't in this instance right now. And we said input without tag. And that's moving everything except the ingots. We said input with tag ingots or with tag. Where's it? Or tag mineable / axe, I think. So if we get a log, those will get moved, but not the stuff that are not compatible with axes. So all the ingots and all the stuff that's mineable with an axe are being moved. So that's the block tags are also supported here. And now the logical stuff is also working. We added fancy inventory cables, so thank you for the contributors who made that possible. As well as the facade stuff. A lot of the big stuff were contributed by others, so thank you to those, for Kino and the others. Optimize the label gun rendering, so some optimization, caching. Oh yes, the label gun. So if we look at the label gun, so right now we have A and B labeled, and let's say there's a bunch of other stuff that way as well. If you hit Alt, it will cycle through modes. So showing blocks with the active labels, right now I have B or A, it'll show just those ones. And then some people, if you have a million, or not that many, but a lot of blocks labeled with the same thing, then it might be desirable to only show the one that you're looking at as well if you're dealing with a lot of stuff. And of course, if you have multiple labels on the same block, then it will also work that way. So if we do A, it's showing, because this has A, it's going to show all the labels for that block as well when you're in the modes. So that was optimized. So if you have many blocks labeled, then that's also going to be faster when you're holding it to see it. You can search in the label gun now. So if we have first, second, 2, then now it acts as a search, and if you hit done, it'll actually just use the content of the text box as the next label. So there's a search in here now as well. The configs can now let you disable resource types. So there's also a new button here, View Server Config. So if you're a pack maker and you want to add a Super Factory Manager, but you don't want to let it move redstone, flux, or forge energy, same thing, or items or fluids or whatever, then you can disable that through here. So I'll give you like SFM item. Let's see if that works. So now if we try and move stuff, that might require a server restart. I forget. Oh, you know what? Viewing the server config here, this is just read only. Like, this doesn't let you change anything. However, there is a SFM config edit command. So if you're a level 4 permission or operator or whatever, then you can edit the config here without having to mess around with the text files. So if we do it this way, then now that change anything? No. Well, I didn't test it that way, but I did test it for... let's undo this. Maybe it's just item? The part I did test is if you change the timer trigger interval, so if by default it's 20, but if you want to set it to 1, then now you can. If you're in single player and you just want to change it, or if you're on your own server, then you can change it so that every tick it's going to move some items. Or if you want to make it slower, then now they'll update. All the managers in the world will notice when the config is changed, and they will work accordingly. So if we reset it back to 20, then it should work again without any intervention. That's not good. Invalid program. What's up there? Minimum trigger interval is 20 ticks. Oh, yeah, because we had a 1. So it did work. It just, I had set it to 1, not 20. I'm a little surprised that this one didn't work. Because I was pretty sure that that was the way it works. I'll have to look into that. It might be a restart thing. Continuing down the list, what else has changed? A warning when mechanism blocks are used with the wrong sides specified. So let's see what that looks like. So if I have a redstone, so let's get a chemical tank. So if we're inputting from the creative one and outputting to just a normal one, so we have A and B. So let's input chemical from A and chemical to B. What is going on here? That should be warning. Geez. There we go. I had an older version of the mod. So it gives a warning. Mechanism blocks are read-only when no input side is specified. And if we look at the code, it's just saying input chemical from A. But the warning is saying we have to add a side. So if we do from A top side to B top side, then we have a different warning. So the mechanism block side config at the given position doesn't agree with the statement. So if we look at the block, the side config, top is an input, not an output. So if we fix that, then the warning goes away. And now this is being refilled with the chemical. If we increase the delay, it becomes a little more obvious. Because it's taking the infinite amount and just filling this thing right up. But if we reset the sides here on both of them, we'll get this warning back. So the side config doesn't agree. But if we shift click, it'll attempt to fix the warnings and we'll actually go into the mechanism blocks and update the side configuration to agree with what the program wants to do. So here the top is the input and here the top is the output. And now it's working again. So those are the mechanism warnings for accessing without a side modifier and then accessing when the sides disagree. So that's fixed. There's a label gun pick block modifier key. So if I have the label gun open, I have a bunch of stuff labeled. If I hold Alt, by default, it will let me pick a label as if you middle moused it, kind of like the way you can pick block in the game. But using Alt click, you can quickly select labels from blocks. So if I have a bunch of stuff here, then I can quickly switch between them by just looking at the one that has the label that I want and using the pick feature. Some fixes, confirmation dialog stuff. So copying and pasting and stuff, there's new confirmation dialogues. The water tanks were optimized a bit and they have been buffed. So now they give more water per water. So if we set up some of these, they need water adjacent to them to be active. And if we look at them with the network tool, then we can see it gives 1 bucket of water when only 1 is active. But if 2 are active, then we get 2 buckets. And if 3 are active, instead of 3 buckets, we now get 4 buckets. And if 4 are active, each of them is now giving 8 buckets. So you can get quickly up to the max integer size if you spam like 20 of these. And there's a corresponding command, so if they bug out, sometimes the cables bug and you have to like reset stuff. So there's bust cable network cache has been around for a while, but now there's also bust water network cache in case I messed up the logic to get this to work. Network tool output got some cleanup. The water tank added some reminder text to say that it only gets the bonus if the other tanks are also active. There's an issue tracker inside the mods toml so that when Super Factory Manager causes a crash, it will include the GitHub issues link in the crash report. Optimized some of the data structure, so if you have 9,000 blocks labeled, it should not crash you for having too much NBT data. If you have a very large amount of cables, then when you break a cable, it's going to just tell the mod to calculate stuff again later instead of trying to do some math to figure out what cables to keep. Because if you have a lot of cables, so if you have a situation like this, and you break this middle block, then these other blocks are now 4 different networks. So when you break the block, it will it should unregister the other ones. I'm kind of surprised it isn't, but whatever. And the network tool now works on dedicated servers. Rendering fixes. You should be able to move cables with pistons now, so let's see if we can test that. I don't know if it'll work with the facaded ones because they are block entities. Yeah, so that doesn't work. But if we have a normal cable, then that should be fine. So let's get our program back for the chemicals. So it's filling, and if we break the connection, it will not fill again. But then once we restore the cable, it fills again. So that was kind of working before, and now I've made sure to make it an intended mechanic. Managers will now initialize randomly on load. So if you have 10 different managers, each saying every 20 ticks, they will start their schedule offset from each other, just by nature of it being random. So that should help if you have a very large amount of stuff being done by the mod. And the other thing is, if you want to try and take full control over the scheduling of it, then there's a new syntax for aligning to the global clock to have managers do things at the same time. So it's a little hard to explain. So let's see if we can look at the demos for that. So there's, that's not good. All right, so I can only guess that that's from the when I messed around with disallowing the resource types. So maybe that's just bugged right now, but no one's going to be, very few people are going to be using this for now. So I'm not too worried about that. I can fix it later, which means I don't have to upload all the jars again. But this, like changing the minimum interval, this was kind of the main intent that this was added, so that if you're playing in your single player world, just make it dead simple to adjust this number. So setting it something higher will make all the programs update, and then setting it something lower, you can, if you wish, change the defaults so that you can do every 1 tick and have it just work. Of course, if we look at the warning, did you remember to push your labels? So now every tick, it's checking, and it's without having to restart anything. So only operators can run this command, but there we go. So let's back to where we were after that scare. On the to-do list is fixing the GUI scaling for this. Somewhere in here, changelog. Where were we? Global ticks. Let's see. Delete. The scroll bar is fixed, but deleting the text selection offset is not fixed, so be aware. So adding support for specifying global alignment. So if we look at that, then there's an example for timer stuff. There should be. Simple program, filtering changelog, blah, blah, blah. Tag matching, thank you. Is it off the screen? Yeah, it is. Okay, at least it's included. I need to fix the other, this scaling thing though. So the manager starts when placed, it's randomly initialized, and then you can do global ticks or global +1, or so if you want 2 things to happen like after each other, then you could do every 20 ticks. Then you can also do every 20 +1 ticks. So this will happen the tick after this one, which is distinct from every 21 ticks, because if it was every 21, then eventually these would synchronize and tick on the same time. But if you want it to always be the tick after, then that should work. Every 20 +1 ticks. Then A, B, Then we can make you C. Let's also change this to only move 1. So it moves 1 over, and then the tick afterwards, it moves it back. And if you want that to be synchronized to the global clock, then you can add G or global or whatever. Get the exact. But that synchronizes it to the world time. So if you had 2 managers running that exact program, then you can synchronize them easily using that construct. So the example has more details. So there's an example, confirmation stuff, fixing errors, performance improvements, config command, logging for if the mod voids something, which should only happen if another mod is lying, but moving on. Config values. There's a crafting recipe to clear the label guns. Hitting clear on the label gun should now reset the active label. So if I have B selected and then I hit clear, then now there's nothing selected. Cleanup support, inspections. There's hotkeys now for the next and previous for the label gun. So if you can shift scroll, but if you're on like a laptop or whatever, then scrolling might not be the easiest. So there's now a keybind. So label gun next and previous. Whoops, I want like that. Then now without having to shift scroll, I can do next and previous using the hotkeys. Facades. The facades have direction support. So if I have a fancy one, and let's get a log. Then when applying this, it checks the side that you click for how it to be applied. So if you have, I think it works, I'm not entirely sure how the stairs behaves. I forget. It's interesting, but it depends on the side that you click, and it just grabs the texture or whatever. So if you have a block that has different faces, so let's say furnace, then if you want all your cables to look like a furnace, then you can. So the full blocks, it just picks the facing direction from that, but the for these, the same face is used for all the sides. And of course you can change between the shapes. So the same way you apply facades, if you have the cable in the hand, then you can clear the facade or change the shape of it using it the same way that you can apply the textures. Performance improvements, scroll bar. There's a fix for the industrial foregoing or meat fluid that was previously not working, and now it is. What is this? There was a crash when hitting the little question mark button to fix problems, so that's fixed now. There was a crash related to the disk item and stuff that grabbed the tooltip. So I think that was happening on servers where if you're using the creative search, then that would cause a crash. So let's see if I can verify that that's working. So if we go back to our server, I will hopefully not crash when I open the creative thing. Yeah, so that's working. Good. And then we're almost at the end. There's a printing press bug which should be fixed now, and I think that's about it. So in 37 minutes we managed to get through all the changes with a few problems along the way. All right, well, enjoy. Let me know if you have any problems. There's the GitHub issue tracker, So if you have any problems, then you can go there. There's also a Discord button here now. So if you want to say hi, then this makes it quite easy to hop in. So see ya.